All right. Hello. What is up? Race Brain HYROX Rundown show. That is a working title. But today, I have a very special guest. I have the fastest Australian in the world in HYROX. We have probably the biggest defender of HYROX to the CrossFit bros on Instagram. We also have, he's not just the fastest Australian, he is the third fastest man of all time. He might be Hunter McIntyre's new daddy, but more importantly, he is Georgie's fiance. We got JK. What's up, JK? How we doing?
I think you nailed it, especially the last part there, Matt. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Dude, congrats, man. You're a fiance now. How's it feel?
Yeah. I've got my big boy boots on now, and got to be thinking not just about myself and my training all the time, mate. So no, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we've had a special Christmas, and it's been good. I'm just here to collect my Okra award, mate.
Yeah.
Is
Do
it
y'all
called
have okra? Do you have okra in
Oh,
Australia?
hang on, like not just your race brain. No, yeah, no, I've never heard of it.
Okay. So okra is actually like a little plant. According
Oh,
to Google, it is native to East Africa. It's cultivated in tropical, subtropical, and warm temperate regions. It's little like pods. So almost think like this is a really dumb question and just going to show how American I am. Do y'all have green beans in Australia?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's like not too dissimilar from a green bean. But like
Okay,
here in the States, people will eat fried okra. So
right.
that's the joke. But
Gotcha.
yes, you did win an okra.
I did win an Okra, so thank you for that. And I'm just here to pick it up, mate. But no, in all honesty, thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
We've been trying to get a time for quite a while, so thank you, Matt.
Yeah, dude. First question for you. What's more nerve-wracking, competing at world championships or asking Georgie to marry you?
1000% asking Georgie to marry me. I
Was
was,
she surprised?
she
Did she know it was
was,
coming? Okay. Hell yeah. There we
she
go.
she knew it was coming, but not on the day. Like I nailed the surprise. Like she had no idea on the day. And in fact, mate, everyone's asking me why on earth I brought the ring out to the ocean. We went for a swim, and I brought the ring out in the ocean. And I thought I was good, mate. I thought I was like in control, and I was about to, get down on one knee, and all of a sudden, it just hit me. I'm just like, I didn't know what to say. So 100%. My nerves for that, but in that moment, and it actually took her longer to say yes than I thought, but we got there. We got there.
Okay, so then the first follow-up question to that would be, you went out for a swim. Was this a leisurely swim or was this a hybrid engine, 2,000 meters for time? We got to get back to the shore, run in sand.
Leisurely swim, mate, and I was never going to drop that ring. I think
Yeah.
my grip strength is very good on the farmer's carry, but my grip strength that day for the ring was outstanding. So no, got it by surprise, and then we had a great day. So yeah, no, definitely nerves for a proposal. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Well, congrats to you and congrats to Georgie, HYROX's favorite Australian power couple. So
Thanks, mate.
I still love the outfit choice for your big stubbles in Hong Kong. That was awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. That's all. That was all Georgie, by the way. Not me at all.
Dude, you've already learned rule number 1 of being married. Give your wife all the credit. So
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
you're doing great, man. You're doing great. All right, man. Well, we've been, I know you've listened to a couple of these. So we've been playing this game, the HYROX over under of famous people. So I'm going to give you 3 people. I'm going to give you a time. You're going to tell me if they're going to go over or if they're going to go under. And obviously, because you are the fastest Australian alive, we're going to stick with Australians. So first and foremost, Mr. Centerfit himself, Chris Hemsworth.
By the way, I knew you were going to pick him. I knew you were going
Had to be. I mean, there's just too much. There's too many parallels. Chris Hemsworth, he's pretty fit. Thor himself, I don't know what kind of aerobic capacity he's got though. So I'm gonna say 72. Over under 72.
And this is a pro singles, yeah.
Pro singles.
No, over.
Yeah. How much over? How far off am I?
He'd do a 75 to 80 minute.
Okay, so I'm not too far off.
No, you're not. But I just think his back end half, or his half at the back end, with maybe not the aerobic base, maybe, who knows? But I'm going to say a 75 for Chris Henshaw. Chris
Hemsworth. CrossFit on the mind for JK. Okay, so with that, now that you've given me some feedback, this next one will be dialed in on Hugh Jackman, Wolverine himself. And I'm going to say, based on that feedback you just gave me for Chris Hemsworth, Hugh Jackman over under 77.5.
Over. He's not gonna beat Chris. And also he's got more muscle than anyone. He's probably gonna have a really slow burpee broad jumps. Sorry, Hugh Jackman, but I'm gonna say an 80-minute.
All right, 80 minutes. Okay. Yeah. All right. And then last but not least, someone who is loved here in the States, but is an Australian. We're going to go Keith Urban. And Keith Urban is not as fit as Hugh Jackman and Chris Hemsworth. So we're going to give a little bit more. So I'm going to say 95. 95 over under for Keith Urban.
I just feel like he's got some guts. He's got some heart. You know, he's got some ticker. I reckon he could potentially crack. Yeah. Those wall balls might do him, but I'm going to say under. I'm going to say 9. I'm going to say he's going to scrape under. I mean, scrape under.
So you think the current average men's pro time is 1:32. So you think he's right about average?
I think he's right about average. Correct.
All right. Fair enough. Just. Barely. All right. Well, that's yeah, well, it always depends on the sleds. Well, dude, I really appreciate you hopping on. For those listening, by the time you're listening to this, it is currently 6:15 a.m. for JK down under, which is early. So I appreciate you taking the time. But the first question I have to ask you, were you working out with the fittest woman alive yesterday? Did I see that right?
I was, mate. Yeah. They
was that happenstance, or do you know Tia?
I know them personally now. Yeah, okay. Over the last month. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to get to know Shane and Tia. They actually, ironically, they live 5 minutes away from Georgie and I. And,
really?
Yeah, and I'm good mates with James Newbury, so that's how it's been connected. And James is up for the weekend, and I was able to go to their barn yesterday and do a few workouts with them. So it's pretty surreal. I'll be honest with you, Matt. I've actually hung out with them a couple times, but working out with them is actually surreal. Yeah, because you know I'm the first to say you're probably similar, and a lot of listeners are probably similar where it comes to like Tia's been obviously the lady to beat in the space for so long, and seeing her in the flesh and seeing her move is pretty incredible. So yeah, mate, I'm pretty privileged about that at the moment.
Yeah, she's awesome. And so is it true? Is she really 5'2"? Oh, wait, small, do you all do? Yeah, I realized I was 6:15 in the morning for you. You all don't do it that way.
5'2". Yeah, no, she's definitely small. Yeah.
So she's like Lauren Weeks' height, but built like
yeah,
like a
yeah,
like a brick house.
Yeah,
with an engine for days.
Yeah, correct, mate.
We'll do one more. We'll do one more over under for you because we did have this. We did have this conversation on Race Brain. Tia Tia-Clair Toomey comes into HYROX and decides to do a HYROX Pro. We all do think that give her more than one race, she instantly becomes a podium threat. But for her first race, if she were to do a solo, do you think she goes over, under 61 and a half?
Without doubt, dependent. Sorry, let me start again. Dependent on the amount of weeks and volume and specific training she can do. Let's just say she comes in with her fitness, her CrossFit fitness and her fitness now, definitely over 61 and a half.
Over. Okay.
Yeah. And
how far over?
She'd probably do a 65.
Okay. So you think 65 is still the right line for new entrants?
Well, for new elite entrants, absolutely, yeah. Not knowing her now, and she'll be the first to say as well. Her power output, Matt, and her strength is just absolutely amazing with her body stature, right? Or her power to what is it? Power to
her size, to her overall her output to her size, yeah.
Correct. But it's just getting that running volume and that sustained ability for an hour long, right? James and Tia did a doubles workout yesterday that was about 56 minutes, and that's a very long workout to them, and they've barely done a workout for 56 minutes. But if you think about it, that's what she'll need to do. So long story short, I think over, if she specifically trained for it for 8 to 12 weeks, I reckon she could get that down to about a 63, 62. But as you know, Matt, like getting down around that 61 for the females and lower.
Fast.
Yeah, it's fast running. It's fast running. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, dude, that's super cool, man. Like I think it's cool to see you getting that opportunity to get to hang out with someone who is just arguably the greatest athlete of our generation. I mean, she's not just a high level CrossFitter. I mean, she represented Australia in the Olympics. She's obviously just a special person when it comes to athletics in general. I actually just picked up her book for Christmas and just started reading it. It's been cool to see. So it's cool to see that you've gotten that opportunity to do it. And so I guess one question I had for you is, and I know it's all in good fun because if there's one thing that I know about JK without ever having the pleasure to like actually meet you in person, you seem like you like to have a good time. And so the Instagram back and forth with CrossFitters, I think, is just you having a good time. But do you have a background in CrossFit, or is that something that you picked up through working with Anthony?
I don't have a CrossFit background at all. For ever since school, mate. So 12, 13 years now, Matt. I've been doing functional fitness. I've always gravitated to the gym, but functionally, if that's even a word. But I've never actually dabbled in CrossFit specifically. I've done the CrossFit Open, but I'll be honest with you, I've done 2 out of the 3 workouts that are in my wheelhouse, and then I end up not being able to do the third one, right? And I don't have I'll be honest, I haven't had the patience in the past to actually get better at, or to try to get better at, the gymnastics, the Olympic lifting. As you just said, though, since working with Anthony and the hybrid engine, my structure has changed a lot. My training structure has changed a lot to a lot of CrossFit methodology. If someone walks into the gym, Matt, and sees me train, they'd probably go, oh, he looks like he's doing CrossFit, right? So the CrossFit methods I've been doing for quite some time, but not CrossFit specifically, right?
Sure.
But, I think you nailed me in a way. Like, I like to have a good time. I think that's the best way to put it. But also, I'm I'm all about making sure that, you know, people don't get away with things as well. I'll be the first to, and I hate, you're probably the same. I hate social media, but I also think it's a growing industry.
Necessary evil.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you know, just because someone has an opinion doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean my opinion's right either, but I'm okay with, let's just say I'm okay with sharing my opinion as well.
Yeah, for sure. I am personally looking whenever the one-on-one goes down between JK and Hiller in HYROX, I don't care if it happens down under. I will pay the money to fly and see it in person. I am here for, actually, if we could get Hunter, JK, and Hiller to do a day of fitness, I am there for it. I am there to see it.
Hiller, it's interesting just on this topic, mate. I'm the first to say that if I'm never going to be the one to go, yeah, CrossFitters, I'm going to come into your space because I think I'll beat you. Any CrossFit workout, any you know, Olympics and gymnastics style CrossFit workouts, like, you guys will absolutely smash me. But when CrossFitters come into my space, and it's not just my space, I'm just saying, when CrossFitters come into my sport, our sport, I ain't letting them get away with it. You know, I'm going to make them work, number one, and I'm going to make sure that I try to come out on top, right? That's pretty much what I'm doing. You know?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, for those that don't know what we're talking about, just go find any Hiller post and look in the comments. If it has to do with HYROX, you'll probably see JK standing up for your boys. So, but we won't spend too much time there because that's not the purpose of this show. The purpose of this show is for you all to get to know JK. And your background, athletic background, is you did Australian rules rugby, correct?
Correct. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's Australian rules football. Rugby is a different sport. So there's Aussie rules.
Oh, so there's Aussie rules football. So there's football, there's Aussie rules football, and then there's rugby.
And then there's rugby. Yeah, very polar opposite, mate. Aussie rules football is a lot of endurance running. It's a 2-hour game, and just to give you some context, I used to clock up about 15 or 14 to 15 kilometers per game in that 2 hours. And it's a game where you're getting tackled, you're tackling, you're sprinting, you're jumping. And I played that for 20 years before dabbling into HYROX, and that's the reason why I was able to come into HYROX pretty well off the bat. It's the best, as much as I don't believe in compromised running, but it's the best compromised running sport there is, because, you know, you're getting tackled, you have to do a burpee, and then you got to sprint, and then you got to jump, and then you got to sprint again. So that's my background, mate. As well as long distance running, I've done a number of marathons, a number of half marathons as well.
You recently just clocked a half at, what was it, 113?
115. 115. Yeah.
Which is moving.
Yeah. So I did that just after the World Championship when we got back to Australia, actually.
That's wild. Well, okay, so since we're talking about running, I actually have never heard this opinion of yours before. So you don't believe in compromised running. So can you expound on that? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, like, due to what and how Anthony, how I've trained through Anthony Pericini, my right hand man, my man in my corner. We believe, or I believe now that you're either in a HYROX, you're either doing the stations or you're running. There's no such thing as anything else in between, because if you look at the modalities, you got to get better at the you got to get better at the modalities singularly, and that's what we focus on. I'm not saying that there's no such thing as getting fatigued. Like, you are getting fatigued right from the get-go by running and then doing the ski erg and then running again, right? You're getting fatigued by running and then pushing the sled, but mentally, the word compromised running, when it came out, or whoever invented it, or when it came out in this space, it's just a negative mindset to be in when you're racing. It's like, or even training, it's like telling yourself, I'm compromised, that's okay. I'm compromised, I don't have the fitness to keep my pace. I'm compromised. Well, that's just a myth in my eyes. Stemming on this and a little bit more into training-esque, like, we do a lot of threshold training. And threshold training is your ability to flush out lactic acid faster than it is accumulating in your body. And if we're doing that precisely, then over time and short period of time, you're able to make sure that you're gaining back your pace, or your threshold pace, meaning that over a 30-second block, 1 minute block, you're back to your run, which is just running. It's not compromised. So I guess to sum that up, to me, it's just telling myself that it's just that mental switch, Matt, where I'm just like, no, I'm just running now, or I'm just pushing the sled. Yeah, I'm the first to say, after that sled push or after the sled pull, my legs are burning. But after 30 seconds, I'm back on track. I'm back, at my normal running pace.
Okay, so I see because I see what you mean. So when I think about, I hear that of like people could just use as an excuse, but when I hear people talk about compromised running, like how I interpret it, and I think I could be wrong. If Rich listens to this, he can correct us both, because I'm pretty sure Kirk DeWitt, who used to be on the Race Brain show, I'm pretty sure he was the one that came up with the phrase originally. And I think it's just the idea of like what you could run, your pace that you would run in a road race. It may not be the pace that you run in a HYROX. Like, as an example, many of the, and I'd be interested to hear what your time is, but I think many of the elite men could run a 5K in probably sub 16:30 is probably fair to say, which would be 3:8. I'm not very good at this conversion, but would be like a 3:18K, I think,
Yep.
or less. So it'd probably be anywhere from like a 3-minute to a 3:18 1K. But then in the race, you guys are running like what, let's say 3:25 to 3:45. So it's that idea of like, you have another gear that you can access, but you can't access it in the race because of the lactic or whatever from the sled push or the sled pull or the burpees, right? Like, that's what I think of when like compromise, because there's a lot of fast runners who are also strong, but we can't see them put that together in a race.
My response to that, Matt, is it's that's all to do with their training then, right? I've learned the power of double thresholds and dialing in your threshold pace, not going over it, so that your body is just understanding how to flush out lactic acid. HYROX is a lactate threshold running race. If you specifically train by training in your threshold, then you're just making sure that you're getting your fitness to a point where no matter how heavy that sled is, or how much your legs are burning after the burpee broad jumps, you can immediately flush out that lactate to get back on the run. Interesting, because and I can only use myself as an example here. My top end, let's just say 5K versus my 5K in a HYROX. Well, we all know it's not 5K, but my first 5K, let's just say, in a HYROX race, the difference, it wouldn't be that much. Now, so what I'm saying here, it's personal. I know for a fact there would be some elite athletes that their top end 5K all out time trial would be a lot faster than their, five fastest kilometers in a HYROX race. But for me personally, and to go back to it, I've been able to find the best way to train for me with my coach. And I guess it's working right now, right? I don't
hard
think
to argue with results. Results speak for
Yeah.
themselves. Hard to argue.
I honestly don't think, and I'm not just saying this, I don't think I think my difference would be only 30 seconds. Like my
Okay.
my 5K time trial versus what I do in a HYROX race would and that's just a result of I don't have a lot of top end speed versus my sustained power, or my sustained effort is strong due to my lactate threshold training. Yeah, I hope does that make sense?
It does. It does make sense. So you're just using your most recent race as an example, which was Hong Kong, which is always a little bit different because that's elite racing, which we all know is very different than time trialing. Your average run time was a 3:46, which is basically an 18:45 5K. What could you run a 5K in if you just were to go out and?
Well, our measurements is obviously when Anthony and I go back, we have a look at the average pace of the 8.7 kilometers that we're doing now. 8.7 is the runs plus the rock zone.
Sure. Yeah. That's right. Because the elite race doesn't have rock zone. It's just running because of the way they do it. Yeah. So okay, that's fair. So it's probably a little bit faster.
So I'm pretty sure my my average pace was in and around that 3:30 mark overall, right? I personally think I would probably do a 5K that would be about 6:15. I don't think I'd scrape under 6:16. So yeah, look, it might be a little bit faster than my average pace in a HYROX, but where I'm going here is it's different for everyone though, Matt. Like I know, and and obviously the listeners would probably know that the way that I train, or the way that anyone else trains for Elite 15 is so different, and it should be. I know some athletes that train from the ceiling down as opposed to the floor up, if that makes sense. I'm all about training from the floor up, trying to raise the floor to raise my ceiling, rather than raising the ceiling and raising the top end, right? Because in our eyes, it's a sustained effort race more than anything.
Yeah. So maybe let's get into that. So I think I'm not going to anybody listening to this show is going to know who JK is. So just in case anybody doesn't know who JK is, to get everybody up to speed very quickly, JK is actually one of the few elite men to actually come into HYROX, and his debut race is sub 60. So that is not the norm. Very much not the norm. Most of the time people come in kind of mid 60s is where they come in at. JK ran his first race in a 59:53. Later that year, he broke that down to a 59:01. He then went with Daddy Hogan over to Hong Kong to try to get a time to get in. He got second there. He ran a 58:36. And then, if you haven't heard the incredible story, there's multiple podcasts mentioning this. JK, call it a gut feeling. Just had the feeling that he'd have the opportunity to race in the 2023 World Championships. Tim Vinish literally went out 30 minutes before the race. JK grabbed his shoes, barely had time to warm up, and then finished 8th in the world on effectively 20 minutes of notice. That put JK definitely squarely on the map for everybody else, and then kind of had this ascent from there. He raced in all of the elite races last season, never finishing worse than, I think, 7th? 9th. Ninth. Okay. They had one where he finished 9th, then got in via the LCQ, where he ran a blazing time of 54 minutes. and then in Cologne, and then at the World Championships. I would say definitely change the way that people think about HYROX, because I actually remember I was there and watching it. Every time JK left a station, this goes back to what he was just saying about how you're either working out or you're running. JK took off like a bat out of hell out of every single station, and everybody wondered, like, oh man, like, is that sustainable? Turns out it was. He got third in the world. And now most recently actually won the Hong Kong Major. So I do want to talk about the Hong Kong Major, but before we get there, all of that to say, would you say that that is the biggest difference from, like, because I'm sure people ask you all the time, like, you obviously have always been good at HYROX. It's fair to say you've always been elite at HYROX, but now you're not just elite. Like, you're not one of the people in the middle of the pack. Like, you are I think it's fair to say you are a world championship contender next year. Like, I don't think for a while in HYROX it was like, okay, it's Hunter, and then it's Ronk, and then it's kind of like this middle pack. Like, I think it's fair to say right now, like, there are three main people who you'd have to consider to be real threats for the world title, and that would be yourself, Hunter, and Ronk. So that's obviously a very fair ascent kind of to the top. Would you say that that is the difference, is the how you have approached training in the last 12 months?
100%, Matt. And it's only that, right? I look at myself now compared to when I first started HYROX, and I'm training so differently. Not that I was training wrong back then, but I'm training very differently. The structure of my training is very, very precise, and very, well, let's just use the word structured. It's very structured week in, week out. I'm not changing a lot week in, week out, depending on the phase or what we're focusing on, right? But it's just the training. It's just the training that I've been able to adapt very well with Anthony. And sorry, it's not just the training, it's the support that I've got around the training. Obviously, we were talking about Georgie before, Matt. She's my, she's my everything when it comes to support. She's the first to back me with what I'm doing here. But not only that, working with Anthony and the hybrid engine and Lauren Weeks, like, we've got a bit of a team camaraderie going on as well. So knowing that and having those type of people in my corner has just done me wonders. And it's all about being confident at the start line, right? I always say to my athletes, Matt, at the end of the day, you want to get into that tunnel knowing that you've done everything in your power to be here and to be the fittest that you can ever be, to be in that tunnel. And having like Lauren Weeks and Anthony in my corner, like, not necessarily telling me that I am, but knowing that I am with me is just such a confidence builder. Like, Lauren Weeks being in my eyes the most impressive HYROX athlete in the world, and has been for quite some time. Just being able to talk with her whenever we want and go through training and things like that is just it's just so powerful, and more powerful than the actual training itself. So it's the support network behind me that is really helping me as well. But the structure, the programming, the coaching, it's all tailored right towards the goal of getting to the start line as fit as I can be. Yeah.
I love that. I guess a follow-up question to that. So you talked about one thing that you said earlier when we were talking about double threshold, and you feel like it works for you. I guess when you think about coaching, like, obviously you are a coach yourself, you have quite a few athletes. I would imagine that, the group coaching, and they're following a structure. But for your one-on-one clients, like, do you have one-on-one clients that benefit from a different maybe structure, to use that word? Or Like, is it individualized? Like, are you and Lauren doing the same workouts because you're both elite athletes, or are those changing because Lauren's needs are different than your needs? Like, I guess, how personal do you get in terms of the training? Or like, do you think, because I think one thing that a lot of people who listen to this show probably, well, they definitely probably care about HYROX, which means they race HYROX. And as you said, there's many different ways to train for HYROX. There's many different programs out there. Seems like every elite athlete has their own coaching program. So I'm curious, like, do you think that there is do you think that you're working, I guess, let me consolidate this question because there's a lot of rambling. Do you think that you're working towards this is the right way to do it, or this is the right way to do it for JK, and then the right way to do it for Lauren Weeks might be different than the right way to do it for Hunter McIntyre?
Well, that's like the former there. Like, it's not just one size fits all. Sure. To the point where, the structure of the week to week could be very similar with Lauren and I, or even I coach Joanna Wettrick, right? The structure of my training and Joanna's might be similar on paper, but the actual workouts and the time domains and what we're focusing on, whether it is like the sport specific stuff, totally different. And that's what is really personal, right? Having the double threshold days, and I'll just use myself as an example, on Tuesday, Thursdays, in between having long aerobic days, and then having a double threshold on a Saturday when it comes to a strength run, and then maybe a HYROX workout as well. That structure is game changing for me. And what's different and what's personal is what I need to work on. And every race, there's feedback, there's data, and Anthony and I go back to it and go, okay, you are good here. There's potential opportunities to get stronger here. All right, we need to focus on this now. So we're going to put more emphasis on or in workouts with, this sport specific or grip stuff or lunges or whatever. So yeah, the structure to me, mate, can be very similar for anyone and everyone in HYROX, but the actual specifics of the structure,
the components are different.
Would be different, yeah.
Because I'm thinking it does make sense, because I think where I'm kind of going with it is like the local CrossFit gym that I train at, which is a HYROX affiliate. They're on the CrossFit side. They actually follow the proven workout plan, right? So like, it doesn't matter if you come in for a 5 a.m. class, you come in for a 5 p.m. class. If we're doing snatches, right, and then a 12-minute Metcon, like that's what we're doing. Everybody's doing the same thing. So I was wondering, like, okay, is the structure obviously is there, but it sounds like what you're saying is like, your double threshold day may be the same for you and Lauren, but what is incorporated in that double threshold is likely different between the two of you.
It's very different. Yeah, correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, out of respect for your time, we only have 14 minutes left. So one thing that I have been curious about is like, you came into HYROX, and at least from what I can tell, and I, could be wrong because Instagram is not always reality. Like, you kind of went all in, like right from the beginning. Like, you last year, you had the opportunity with Georgie. Y'all moved over to Germany for a year. That allowed you to race a little bit more, focus on your coaching business. But like, as I kind of mentioned in the lead in, like now you are like at the top in terms of like that kind of top 3 athlete. But prior to world championships, like that wasn't the case. Like, you kind of were in that like middle pack, but you had already like gone all in on this HYROX thing. So talk to me a little bit about, like, I'm just curious, like, talk to me about that mindset. Like, what did you like? That takes a lot of courage and guts to go all in on something that like wasn't necessary. Now is huge. I mean, we're just watching it explode every single weekend. But like 2 years ago, like, as you know, I mean, it was big, but it wasn't like nearly as, and I don't even know that if we could have imagined that it was going to be this big, this quick. So like, talk to me about the thought process of like for lack of a better term, just like burning the boats and going all in on something in very early days? Like, what was that like for you, and what kind of led to that decision?
Well, I've always been an all or nothing guy, or I've had that mentality for everything that I do. And I've always said, I always kind of, I'm smirking because there's pros to that, but then there's also, cons to that. But I'll be honest with you, like I turned 28, and for some reason, Matt, like I felt like as soon as I turned 28, I was like, my mindset shifted to a little bit more, all right, I want to make something. I want to create something. I had this vision inside myself to create my own business. And it wasn't until then that I was like, all right, like let's double down on something. HYROX came about, did well in my first race, and then here we are now, right? But it's always been my mindset. Like I still remember when I was growing up, I used to have weekends where I'd run a cross country race on a Friday, wake up and play a rugby game on a Saturday, and then wake up on Sunday and play an Aussie rules game on a Sunday. And that was my life for 10 years whilst I was growing up, because I loved it, because I just wanted to double down on my sports. And not only that, looking at it now, you need to go all in if you want to achieve anything in this sport. Achieve anything on the world stage in this sport. I'm not saying to any listener that you have to give up your day job. I'm not saying that. But
Would actually advise against it.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. But I don't know where I'm going here, but there was
that makes sense. Like if you basically felt like you had that desire, you thought that you could be one of the best in the world, but the only way to do that was to go all in.
And it was like, it wasn't a risk because this sounds really bad, but it wasn't a risk because I had nothing else to lose. Like I didn't have anything to lose either. I've always had that mindset. I've always had the mindset of like, what is the worst outcome? And if you think about worst case scenarios, like, are they actually that bad? Like if you think about it, like even racing, if something doesn't go my way, is it actually that bad? I was 28 and call it like I wasn't lost, but I was managing a gym. I wasn't enjoying myself. I just had met Georgie, and she may have given me a spark to go, no, let's chase this. But I was just like, I've got nothing else to lose. Let's go. And then we ended up obviously moving overseas, and then moving overseas obviously gave me more room to move, because obviously down here in Australia we're far away from most, mate. Back then, two years ago, no one in Australia knew what HYROX was. No one, which is like funny as well, because I went over to London, did that first race, and people are like, "What the hell? What's HYROX? Like hydroxy?"
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Like, and I'm the first to say, Matt. I'm on a. I've got goals. I've got aspirations with Georgie, with Anthony, with Lauren. But I'm riding this wave as much as anyone. If tomorrow I wake up and I've got this gut instinct that it's not for me anymore, I'm not going to be pushing it, if that makes sense. I'm riding this wave because I love it. And as much and I'll continue to ride this wave until I fall out of love with it, right? But yeah, it's as you just said, it's phenomenal how much it's grown and kind of taken over the weekend warrior esque like athlete as well. which is fantastic. So I hope that answered the question. I think I just absolutely bombarded you.
No, you could tell that I think you could tell that you love it. Like, it's, one thing I think is cool is like when these races happen, when these majors it'd be very easy for JK to show up, run the major, and then like go vacation or do whatever, or just go back home. But like, dude, you're there the next day for your athletes at 7 a.m. and like you're there on the wall balls, and like you're live streaming Georgie's race. And then like if you've got athletes going the next day, like you're there the whole weekend. And so you could just tell that like it's not just a job for you, it's something that you genuinely enjoy. So on that, because we only have 7 minutes left, because I know you got to go and I want to be respectful of your time. I think if I asked you what your goals for the year are, I think that you would tell me to win a world title. I think that is fair to say. But I do have to ask, because I am curious. You do love HYROX, and you do like to race multiple times a weekend. So will we see JK show up at one of these elite doubles races?
That is the plan. That is the plan.
Are you willing to say who your partner would be?
Not yet. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Oh, dang.
Because,
thought I could get it out of you.
It's not crystal clear what one we're doing either. But the plan is to race and to, fingers crossed, qualify for the Elite 15 Pro Doubles. But we're just trying to plan out the actual race that we're doing, which potentially could be in America. Yeah.
Okay. And are you gonna? So that was gonna be my next question. So there's 2 majors left. There is Vegas and there is Glasgow. Will you be racing both?
At this stage, yes. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, if I'm healthy and if I'm fit, ready to go, I'll be I'll be at both of them. So it's interesting though, because I had the luxury of having an auto qualifying spot this year, so I've been able to map out my season pretty well. I try to just focus on one thing at a time. So Vegas is obviously next in line, and we're gearing up for that at the moment. And then after Vegas, we'll assess and see how I'm mentally feeling and obviously physically, and then go from there.
Yeah. Vegas should be a good race, because I think it's probably going to be the first one where we see. I should word this carefully, because this is no disrespect to any athlete who has gotten into it, but Vegas should be the first one where we see all of the true Elite 15 men race. I don't think that there's anyone, unless they're hurt, that would be skipping that. So we are going to get to see kind of all of the big boys, so to speak, go at it. So that should be exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited, mate, because I'm at a point now where I just want to race. I just want to race the best. So if I want to be the best, I want to beat the best. So yeah, man, like that, and it's coming up very quickly. I get to Vegas like on the 21st of.
Are you going straight to Vegas, or are you going to do a hybrid engine camp, since it's only like an hour flight away?
No, straight to Vegas. Straight to Vegas to just kind of bunk down there for, I think, 10 days before the race, and then we've got some time afterwards, which is great. So, will you be there, Matt?
I might. I'm currently racing men's pro. We'll see. Work might make it tough. I'm supposed to have a work event the week after. My wife isn't really ready to be a single mom for 7 days with a 4-month-old, which is fair. So we'll see.
Very fair. Very fair.
We'll see. Well, dude, it's been a pleasure. I want to be respectful of your time. So last question for you. If you were going to give one piece of advice to listeners of the show about just HYROX in general, I know that's a very broad question, but you seem like a very thoughtful human. What would be the one piece of advice that you'd give to the listeners just for their HYROX experience?
This could be as long as I want it to be. Don't worry about time. Time, and what I mean by that is your race time and your goal. We all know that every race is different, and it's getting to the point where HYROX in Vegas versus HYROX in Glasgow is non-comparable. and it's like running a 10-kilometer uphill versus a 10-kilometer flat. So the biggest thing that I'll say is just go out there and prove to yourself that you're capable of doing well, and don't get caught up with the data. Don't get caught up with the times and stuff. That's probably my number one thing, because we all know how much the data is like athletes are driven by the data of HYROX. And yes, like, you know, I am, and Anthony and I are to a point. But yeah, you want to make sure that you're enjoying the process as much as possible, and deleting everything else as much as possible, if that makes sense.
I love that. Basically, show up, give your best effort, and the rest will take care of itself.
Exactly.
Well, I love that. Well, JK, I do so appreciate you taking time to join early in the morning for you. I hope sincerely for us that this won't be the last time you join us. You have an open invite. Maybe we'll get you on one of these major recaps. But tell the people, if they don't already know where to find you, how can they get in touch with you? And are you still taking group training clients?
I do, man. Yeah, definitely. So I've just started a 6-week cycle with the first 6-week cycle of the year. Hit me up on Instagram is probably the best, jk.jameskelly. And yeah, we'd love to chat about your training.
And you also, we didn't really get into this, but you also have a podcast if the listeners want to correct. You've got 2 podcasts, don't you? You've got one with Anthony and the one with your sister?
Yeah. So the one with Anthony is kind of solely ours, like solely Anthony and mine. And then my sister's is hers, but I obviously jump on when I can. So Anthony and I, and we're about to record one in half an hour, but it's the Hybrid Coaching podcast. So it's very coaching orientated. So if you want to check that one out, and then Hybrid Sports Media, which is all things hybrid sports, is specifically in the APAC region. Right? Yeah. So thanks, Matt. Thanks for that shout out.
Yeah, of course. JK, really appreciate it, man. If I don't get to see you in Vegas, best of luck. If not, I know I will get to meet you in Chicago at World Championships. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate the chat.
Yeah, take care.
See you, mate.